This is Ethan, and I'm here with Dave, and together we are Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 158-inch.
On this episode, we interview Dan Avidan and Brian Wecht from the comedy music band Ninja Sex Party.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
It's a podcast about Weird Al.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Seriously, the whole podcast is about Weird Al.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
You don't have to listen, but we're glad you are.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Welcome, one or all, to episode 158-inch.
Ethan, it's a very special episode today.
Yes! Well, we get to talk to Ninja Sex Party. How pretty stinking majestic, Dave.
Well, yeah, of course, that is pretty stinking majestic and all, but that is not what makes this episode so special.
Oh, are you talking about, because our intern Frank finally got the results back from his allergy test? And, well, while he's totally clear, he does have a severe and deathly allergy when it comes to sauerkraut and hamsters.
Well, that is pretty special, but no, that's not what makes this episode special.
Oh, I give up, Dave. What makes this episode so special?
Well, Ethan, episode 158-inch is your special episode because 158 is 1,832 less than the year you were born.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe it! I can't believe it!
Well, you better believe it. And because this episode is 1,832 less than the year that you were born, you get to make a big wish.
I wish for a hamster!
Oh, sorry, Ethan.
Oh, is it because I said it out loud?
No. On podcasts, you are encouraged to say your wishes out loud.
Oh, right. Well, is it because our intern Frank is deathly allergic to hamsters?
No, like that would really stop us from getting a hamster.
Yeah, you're right. Well, what is it then?
We cannot have a hamster without someone sponsoring it.
Why not?
Well, it just wouldn't be right.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think of that. You're right.
Well, maybe you should have wished for a new sponsor for this podcast.
Well, how about I see what fills up first when I wish in one hand and
That reminds me, before we get much further, we have a big announcement.
Hooray!
Our friends Alicia Bonviri and Alexis Adams have started a Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast Discord channel. It is already off to a fun start. So please join us by following the link over on 2000inch.com or weirdalpodcast.com.
And we'd also be remiss if we didn't mention that the unfortunate return of the ridiculously self-indulgent, ill-advised vanity tour is well underway, and we have recorded our first 14 bonus centimeter episodes reviewing and recounting each and every show we've seen on the tour.
We have currently released up through episode 8 centimeter, available now for the the general public, but our Patreon family can expect to see a whole bunch of new episodes dropping soon, plus a few exclusive secret episodes that we recorded as well.
Oh, sounds like to me we've got a message on the 347 Spatula Hotline, the official hotline of Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Okay, intern Frank, let's hear that message.
Hey, Dave and Ethan. This is superfan Jeremy Samples. And since neither of you guys were able to make the May 3rd Portland, Maine concert, and since you sent intern Frank to the show, but he misread the tour schedule and ended up in Portland, Indiana instead, I had to take it upon myself to write a review. I just posted this spoilerific review to Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast group on Facebook. Check it out, enjoy it, but not you, Frank. Get the tour schedule right next time.
Well, thanks for the call, Jeremy. Jeremy has posted a few of his concert reviews already over in our official Facebook group, group.2000inch.com. We encourage you to go check them out. They're a ton of fun, and they'll keep you updated on what exactly is going on at these concerts.
If you are interested in writing a review of a concert, please let us know in advance, and our intern Frank will send you a list of things to track and look out for. Whoa, another spatula call? Wow.
All right, Frank, do your thing.
Hey, Dave and Ethan. This is Allison Parsons. I'm just calling because this might be the last anyone ever hears from me. This might be the last recording. I just saw my first show of this tour. I've been trying to stay spoiler-free, so I snoozed all my Facebook groups, and I haven't been listening to your centimeter episodes. So I finally saw the show. It was great, fun time. I'm coming home. I'm excited because I get to catch up on your show. And so I'm like 3.5 hours away from my house. I got a long drive ahead of me. And so I got my GPS going. But I turned the voice off on my Google Maps so I could listen to your show because I'm so excited. And I'm just so in my head and listening to the show, and I'm not paying attention to the GPS, and it's not talking to me. So every time I look at it, I'm getting farther and farther away from my house. And like, I don't know what state I'm in right now. I don't know. I might be in Pennsylvania. I might be in Ohio. I'm not sure anymore. But I keep going farther and farther into the night, and it gets darker and darker. And I think I might actually be on the nature trail to hell. If you guys don't see me in Canton in a couple of days, just know I'm lost in the wilderness in the Midwest somewhere. And I just wanted to call and let Frank know that I hate him.
Well, hey, Allison, thanks for the call, and I hope it's not your last call. Hopefully you make it home safely, but regardless, the note is taken, and we have shared your sentiments with Frank.
Thank you for the enthusiasm. Hopefully our ridiculously self-indulgent bonus episodes kept you company on the long drive home.
And hopefully the coded messages within those episodes helped direct you home.
Seriously? We take one episode off in over 3 years and we get another message?
Play the darn thing, Frank!
Dave, Ethan, it's UHF. I am leaving my home in Eagle Rock, California, and heading to Van Nuys to a Korean barbecue place that seems to have the Weird Al pinball machine, the Museum of Natural Hilarity. I'm getting in the car now. I will update you once I'm there next week. Okay, bye.
Hey, UH Jeff, definitely give us a call back and let us know all about Weird Al's Museum of Hilarity pinball game. I cannot wait to hear all about that game. And be careful over at the Korean barbecue. You don't want to get any barbecue sauce or peanut butter on the flippers.
Wow, I thought the Eagle Rock in Van Nuys was a lot closer than a week away, but oh boy, I can't wait to hear how it all went and if they really had that special pinball machine. All right, I think we're done with all the calls, Dave, and now it's time for what's happening in Weird Al-related news!
A brand new tour date has been announced for Weird Al's 2022, The Unfortunate Return of the Ridiculously Self-Indulgent Ill-Advised Vanity Tour. This time it is in Shreveport, Louisiana on October 7th.
This brings the announced total number of shows to 132 shows on this tour. Now, Weird Al and Emo Phillips have continued to repeat the claim of there being 133 shows on the tour, so we do expect that there is still at least one more date to be announced.
And in speaking to Marnie Farlow, who is the touring merch coordinator, she expects that there will be updated tour shirts with the new date or dates added. If you have not picked up your tickets to the unfortunate return of the ridiculously self-indulgent ill-advised Vanity Tour yet, you will want to do that soon.
Yes, many of the tour dates are already sold out, including the one at Carnegie Hall in New York City. So head on over to weirdal.com/tour to get your tickets right now, and maybe we'll see you on the road.
A brand new trailer just dropped for the new animated short featuring podcast alumni Weird Al Yankovic, Jonah Ray, and Craig Billmeyer.
Yes, the short's called That Sucks, and it chronicles the adventures of Craig's band, The Love Songs. And while it does not yet have a release date, it is set to do the film festival circuit, whatever that means.
And before anyone goes there, we want to address any rumors that Ethan and I will appear in this short. Who keeps starting these rumors?
Well, when we have more information on That Sucks, we will let you know. But in the meantime, be sure to check out the trailer on Instagram at the.love.songs.
This episode is brought to you in part by vegan burrito restaurant Burrito Burrito in Troy, New York, home of the 2-pound double wrapped in a quesadilla Burrito Burrito and Wizard Burger in Albany, New York. Come on down to Burrito Burrito and Burrito Burrito your Burrito Burrito, or hop on over to Wizard Burger for mouthwatering, loaded, dare I say beefy, vegan burgers. From Troy to Albany to Uranus, Burrito, and Wizard Burger, feed the hungry with out-of-this-world plant-based real food, always vegan style. Visit burritosquare.com and wizardburger.com to order ahead.
Our transforming robot friends from episode 80-inch, the band Cybertronic Spree, have a brand new Kickstarter up to fund an album of their original music.
They've already reached their initial goal for the new album, Ravage, just hours after launching the campaign, but be sure to still support the cause to get the album along with exclusive incentives, plus to support a pretty stinking majestic band that has been on this podcast.
It should be pretty easy to find how to support this Kickstarter from their website and their social media profiles. But if you get stuck, just ask us and we'll help you out.
All right, let's move on to what's happening in Ruben Valtierra related news.
As we mentioned on the last episode, Weird Al's longtime keyboard player Ruben Valtierra has launched a super secret club on his new website, rubenvaltierra.com.
Ruben's Super Secret Club offers exclusive access to secret videos, secret photos, and other great secret content.
Club members also get access to secret contests, secret merch discounts, and other secret, fun, secret stuff.
Ooh, I love secrets.
Secretly, me too.
So how does one join Ruben's Super Secret Club? Oh, let me guess. It's a secret.
Oh, that is no secret, actually, Dave. Just head on over to rubenvaltierra.com and click on Super Secret Club to sign up. A yearly membership is currently only $12. What a deal! It's totally worth it.
Wow, $12. I can't believe it. You can barely purchase hamster food for that price.
Well, here's another secret. Both Dave and I are already members of Ruben's Super Secret Club. Shh! Tell everyone!
And while you're on RubenValtierra.com, be sure to check out the news item that Ruben posted, posing with Ethan, wearing one of the shirts he picked up over at Ruben's merchandise shop.
All right, now I suppose it's time for what's happening in Grammy Award-winning Jim Kimo West-related news.
Friday, May 6th was the release day for Grammy Award-winning Jim Kimo West's new full-length album, Aumakua, with Josh Jaffe.
According to Kimo, the new album entered at number 36 on iTunes.
Wow, that is pretty stinking majestic news. Let's keep that momentum going.
Now, while there are no physical CDs currently available, Kimo encourages folks to download it on Bandcamp, as those sales can help get the album a Billboard chart position.
And the digital album is also available on iTunes, Spotify, Apple Music, or your favorite streaming service.
And don't forget to sign up for Kimo's awesome newsletter at jimkimowest.com and follow him on Facebook to see awesome photos from the tour.
All right, well, I'm really in the mood to party, so let's move on to this episode's interview.
Dave and I are thrilled to welcome the #1 comedy Billboard comedy musicians that, if you're a Weird Al fan, you should either already know or need to quickly get obsessed with. Please welcome Dan Avidan and Brian Wecht of Ninja Sex Party. How's it going, guys?
Hello there.
Good. Hi, thanks for having us.
That was awesome.
That's the most excited anyone has ever been to see me. So I appreciate it.
Well, Dave and I, we've been so excited to chat with you guys, and I know a lot of our listeners have been like, you guys have to talk to Ninja Sex Party for years, so we're so glad that we're finally able to make this happen and have you guys here with us.
That's awesome, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess this is a spoiler alert, but you guys are Weird Al fans.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I mean, you can't be in comedy music and not be a Weird Al fan, right? Like, it's not even possible. He was, Danny and I are just about the same age. We're both in our 40s, and he was a big part of our childhoods growing up, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I remember very clearly, like, holding it when UHF came out and MTV would play the video for the theme song. I would hold up my grandma's tape recorder to the TV and like make my own bootleg tapes.
Wow.
Which I guess technically is piracy, so maybe I shouldn't tell this story, but like it was the only way I could do it. It was the only access I had. So it's wild to think how long his music has been in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you're just about the same age as I am. And so I have to ask you, because I missed this opportunity because I was a horrible kid and I didn't take advantage of this. But did either of you get a chance to see UHF in the theater while it was out?
I did. And I think I was the only person in the theater seeing it. I can even tell you which theater. It was at the Oakland Twin in Oakland, New Jersey. And it was some afternoon showing or something on a weekend.
Wow.
And and I had the only full-sized big movie poster I ever had was a UHF poster that was in my room for since the movie came out. I think until it probably stayed up even through college or something like that, because I just never took it down. But yeah, I had the big the big UHF poster with Al's face right on there for years. So yes, I saw it in the theater for sure.
Yeah, I same. I got kicked out of the theater. Well, not kicked out, but we were harshly warned by the by the guy running the place. But my friend and I, we were in 4th grade, and we went and saw it. And at the time, it was just it was exactly our type of humor,
Right.
and it was a type of humor that wasn't. I mean, now all types of humor are findable and prevalent on YouTube and the internet, but that was before the internet as we know it. So there really wasn't a lot of places. There really weren't a lot of places, I should say, where you could get that type of humor. And when he feeds the clown the dog biscuit, that was I remember that being the moment we were truly lost it. But I mean, I do have this very like clear memory of the movie posters at the time. It was Ghostbusters 2, and then the Batman with Jack Nicholson, and UHF. And I just remember seeing those three and being like, man, one of these is not like the other.
Yeah, it hit me at the perfect age. What year was it? 88? Is that right?
89, I think.
Yeah.
89. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was 14, and like, I mean, talk about the perfect age for that movie. It was just, it was a big thing. Well, and the other thing, kind of to jump off what Dan said, was it was a movie in a real movie theater. Like it was like, I remember I had to hunt around for Al stuff. Like, you'd have to wait for the videos to come on MTV because they wouldn't happen all the time. I always missed the Al TVs when they were on. And it was like, I never knew, obviously no internet, never knew when he was touring, very hard to find. But nevertheless, huge fan, had all the albums, all that stuff. And then when the movie came out, it was like, oh my God, I know where Weird Al is going to be.
Right.
He's going to be in this theater, at 2:10 p.m. this Sunday. I'm there.
Right.
It was, it felt like this guy I've been trying to see a thing from. Like I go out of my way to wait for the opportunity to see. Suddenly I just know exactly when and where it's going to happen.
See, you guys are obviously OG Weird Al fans. When did you actually first get exposed to Al and find his music?
It was right around that time, 3rd or 4th grade, so 88, 89 for me.
Yeah.
I think he had already been popular because of Eat It and Fat and all that.
Yeah.
But I think my friend had a cassette tape of Dare to Be Stupid, and that really got me. And then we started like going through his other tapes and found like Mr. Frump in the Iron Lung. I didn't even know what an iron lung was, but it was still hilarious. And so it was right around that time. Also, like, sorry to take this question and run with it, but I'm going to forget otherwise. I can never remember his name. Anthony Geary.
Yeah.
What's his name in the movie?
Philo.
Philo, thank you. When he turns into an alien at the end.
Terrified me.
Yeah, scared the shit out of me. I'm sorry, I don't know if we're allowed to curse. But it scared me in exactly the same way that Large Marge from Pee Wee Herman scared.
Yes.
And then recently, like this past couple of months, I found out that it was the same studio that did both those effects.
I didn't know
wow.
that. That's
Wow.
cool.
Yeah, so it's we can thank all of our nightmares to one to one group of people.
to both moments where, upon watching the movies a second time, Pee-wee's Big Adventure and UHF, I knew when to turn away from the screen.
Yes.
Like, so as to avoid seeing it. For me, to answer the question, because I'm a couple years older than Dan, I went back a little earlier, and for me, it was definitely Eat It. That was my first
oh wow, okay.
exposure to Al. So I would have been whatever 9 or so at the time, and I remember getting in 3D on cassette. I used to have this thing where whenever I took a shower, but this is not going to get gross, by the way. I wanted to listen to music, so I had a little boombox, and I would just be, 90% of the time it was an Al cassette, and usually in 3D. So I have a very clear memory of listening to Nature Trail to Hell in the shower.
I love that.
Would you sing along to the Weird Al tapes in the shower?
Of course I would.
Okay, good. Sure. I love it. So I guess just to go into actual Ninja Sex Party lore, when did you guys actually meet? Was that back in New Jersey?
You want to take this one, Brock?
Sure. We were both living in New Jersey at the time, so this was 2009 that we met. But we met in the comedy scene in New York, like Upright Citizens Brigade, UCB, and the Pit, through mutual friends in those scenes. So I was coaching musical improv because I'd been doing improv stuff and musical improv stuff, and I was coaching groups, and a person in one of the groups I was coaching knew Danny and connected us, basically gave Danny my info and was like, hey, or Dan, what was the deal? You asked her. This is Julie Katz, who's in our video, The Decision, for those of you who know what that is. And what was the deal? She asked you if you knew any pianists?
Well, I asked her because I had been
oh, sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah, no worries. I had been a musician for maybe like 8 years by that point, and didn't find much luck. And so I went into comedy to kind of like take a breather from it. And that's right around the time when Flight of the Conchords got big and cool. Lonely Island popular. Yeah. And those groups, and Tenacious D too, they made me realize like, oh man, comedy music can be like actually really excellent music. And I figured, maybe that's something I could try. So I started asking people in my improv classes and groups if they knew any comedy musicians, and Brian was the first person I was referred to. And here we are almost 14 years later.
Yeah. But yeah, it was definitely through the comedy scene in New York. And then we met and just kind of clicked immediately and started writing stuff originally to be performed live at, comedy shows. But then very quickly started making YouTube videos, because this was so YouTube was not brand new, but it was starting to really like get big. And we were like, oh wow, we can probably reach more than 5 people in a theater, by putting out a video on the internet. Because needless to say, at the start, it wasn't like, oh wow, sold out shows. It was like, well, hopefully people show up.
Right.
And so we quickly started making videos and saw a much wider reach from those.
What was the inspiration behind going with the Ninja Sex Party name, and as well as, the type of music that the Ninja Sex Party does?
The Ninja Sex Party name was originally just, there were a bunch of bands that I'd loved growing up that I saw suffer from having a name that wasn't eye-catching. There was, and these aren't comedy bands, but there was one called South, and there was one called On, great bands, but how would you ever find them, if you put those in Google? So I sort of learned that you need to have, I guess there wasn't really the term search engine optimization at the time, but that's what it is.
You cracked the code.
It's like that. Yeah, by accident. And so I just wanted something that stuck out, and it was it just seemed like a silly, fun thing, but there wasn't really a strong concept behind it. And then when I met Brian, I asked him if he would mind, being a piano playing ninja that doesn't talk and stabs people on stage. And he was way into it.
I was way into it.
Yeah, which was great. And then from there, like, I needed to have a character that would, kind of balance that out by being really flamboyant, So I ended up being, this Jewish superhero with no powers. And that was, it just like grew from there.
Yeah, there was a lot of, we knew pretty early on, just because we thought it would be funnier, that we wanted to do a character-based thing. All of our comedy music heroes, Al, Flight of the Conchords, Lonely Island, Tenacious D, they're playing heightened versions of themselves, right?
Yeah.
But these characters, like, once you have a ninja right there, it's like, well, that's not me, so one of the things that was the most exciting to me from the get-go was, we can do comedy music but make it character driven, so it's not just that the opportunities for comedy are not just in the lyrics to the songs, it's also in who are these characters, what would they be doing, what's funny for them, as opposed to just generically funny. Although certainly we do have songs that have nothing to do with the characters. The thing that I remember at the time thinking, like, maybe after a few months of doing it, this is actually what we're doing, is, I really want to do like character driven stuff that's funny from that perspective, as well as a wider one.
Mm-hmm.
It helped a lot because, like, one of the toughest things for me in comedy, and it's not my forte and I don't know how people do it, but like, what people who write their own comedy sketches and comedy bands where like every song is just a new thing, that's really tough.
It's really hard.
Yeah, like to start with like a completely blank slate every time. Whereas like with these characters, it was kind of like world building. The more songs you make,
yep,
and you could make references to previous songs and jokes that you had made, and people would think, "Oh, that's a clever callback," rather than these guys are freaking hacks who can't pick up new ideas.
Well, and by making the videos, we found a lot of the character stuff in the process of making the videos. So by basically every song we made a music video out of. In the process of making those, we could be like, I guess this is the way Danny walks. This is like a Ninja Brian kind of thing to do. We did have a live stage show that we were doing at the same time, but that was like 25, 30 minutes or something. Not a lot of room for character development. Yeah. So in making the videos, that was a big part of it too.
For sure.
How would you say that both of your fandom of Weird Al influenced Ninja Sex Party in the early stages?
Well, let me think. I mean, other than just being I hope to someday be as successful as Al, doing this kind of thing. Let's see. Do I have anything intelligent to say about this? There was definitely stuff like, I mean, we would say to each other, like, I bet I would think this was funny. This wasn't like all the time, but occasionally it'd be like, maybe someday we could get to show this to Al. I bet he'd like this kind of stuff. It would be vastly overselling it to be like, we're writing this because we think it's an Al kind of thing. We never really did that.
Right. No, that makes sense.
But I tell me if you agree with this, Danny. I do remember occasionally saying, "Oh man, I bet if we sent this one to Al, he'd really like it."
Well, yeah. I mean, I do remember thinking like, if we ever get to show this to the people we look up to, and they like it, we'll kind of feel like, okay, that's, we sort of made it in a way. I think to answer your question, like, for me at least, I think a lot of entertainment is very vain and very like, I have to look great at all times from every angle. And Weird Al kind of helped me learn at an early age that there's no vanity in comedy, like he was always like throwing himself into things, and like can't remember what happens in UHF, but doesn't his face get mashed into a grease fryer or something like that? Oh no, he gets rolled over by the stone.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, like, just the willingness and the joy in like looking ridiculous and not taking yourself too seriously. That was a big thing too, because you're gonna feel a little humiliation at some point, dancing around in spandex as I do. So like, it's better to just not care too much.
Right.
Yeah. Another thing that I thought about a lot was, all of Al's stuff sounds amazing. Like, they are incredible musicians, Al and his band.
Yeah.
And although, when we first started out, we had pretty limited means, but it was like, okay, it's very aspirational. I want to eventually have this band sound like that, sound like, quote unquote, a real band. And Al was a very, very good example of how you could do that with a full band. A lot of the other people doing comedy music at the time, Danny and I were talking about, like Lonely Islands, Flight of the Conchords. It's more limited stuff. But we always wanted to have a full band, and it's like, okay, no, it can sound good. Listen to Al's record. Like, they sound great. So it was very aspirational from just a purely musical perspective.
Right. Like a gold standard to look up to.
Yeah.
Right. And one more thing I thought of while you were saying that was the joy in being smart and stupid at the same time. Like, so many of Al's songs are ridiculous, and also freaking genius at the same time. Like, I don't know why Hardware Store comes to mind, but like when he gets into that part where he's just like listing these things, and it's perfectly like metered out, and like, just from like a poetry standpoint, it's really, really excellent. That stuff is really cool to me. Just like dumb subject matter explored in the most intelligent way possible.
Yeah. And, another thing that I'll say, which is, I think, a lesson that we learned from Al, is to try to make things somewhat timeless. There's a lot of topical comedy out there, of course, a lot of political commentary and that sort of thing. But, you can listen to Al's first album and it's still funny, and there's still stuff on it that relates to, anyone in any time period. So we would occasionally be like, oh, should we write a song about, I don't know, Twitter or something? And Danny, I remember you saying this to me very explicitly a bunch of times. It's like, no, that's just going to date it. We want to be broader and not pin ourselves to any particular era with references. And that's something I think Al does really well.
Yeah, I mean, things feel like they're going to last forever in the moment. And then a year later, you're like, oh, really? Why would we, do anything like that? And honestly, the only things that I can think of his that are quote unquote dated are the polkas, because of the music that they're doing. Like, if he's trying to think of the one that has Ice Ice Baby, you're like, okay, that's got to be 1990 or 91 or whenever it was. So, but that's the only time, and I think he's been very smart.
Maybe it's more of a time capsule than being dated too, because you sort of can get into that 90s mindset when you listen to one of those songs.
That's exactly the word. I couldn't think of another word for it, but yeah, there's no negative connotation behind it. Like, it just really is like, he was always very smart to never paint himself into a corner like that.
Yeah. And even some of the earlier polkas, I mean, you guys, I forget exactly which one, but Polkas on 45 has like Smoke on the Water in it, right? Like, he's already pulling from older songs, even in the stuff he's doing in the early 80s, early mid 80s.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have released well over 50 music videos. How has Al influenced your music videos? Because he's obviously a king of music videos, in my opinion. Has his influence affected your video style at all?
Not in any way that I can really put my finger on. I mean, I'm sure we think about like, you know, comedy videos and his his contributions to them. So many of his videos are, of course, parodies of the original videos too, and we're not, we're exclusively originals, except for the ones that are covers.
Right.
So we don't have anything really to base it off of. But we've tried, okay. Here's one way I can think of when he was doing. Was it Mandatory Fun where he did like a video every day for a week? Is that right?
Yep.
Something like that. There were a bunch of those where I was like, oh, that animation rules. We got to reach out to that guy and see he's available for a, an SP thing. Cool. I don't think any of these actually ended up happening, but there are a few explicit ones, which now that we're in the industry and can maybe make contact with some of these people, I was like, oh, we should try to do a video, in that animation style. But more broadly, I don't know, Danny, I can't think of any very specific ways in which the Al videos influenced us.
Yeah, I think it's more like just the spirit of silliness,
Yeah.
Just because the band I had immediately before NSP was sort of like a down tempo electronic thing, and it was very moody and heavy. And I found like you spend so much time on your music, like in a little studio working on stuff, that what you're working on tends to like affect your mood, or at least kind of it's a lot of like headspace dedicated to that particular mindset. So when NSP started, it was really joyous, to like be thinking about this goofy stuff all the time. And the videos were just sort of an extension of that, where it's like, let's just have fun and try to pack as many stupid jokes into this as we can. And, make it really colorful. I think that was another thing that Al's videos had that I thought they're just fun to look at, And so that was I think mostly it was more of like a generalized kind of feeling.
Yeah. And we also, I mean, when we started out, we had no money and no budget. So we were doing these like run and gun shoots around New Jersey and New York. And, we didn't have a lot of, like, we would think things out, but it wasn't, it wasn't like, and then the UFO lands, it like, we had a pretty limited capacity to make things. We were lucky to find this guy, Jim Turner, who directed, our first, 20 or something videos, Dan, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and could work with us on that. But then the fun part has been as we are now in year 14 of being this band together, the productions have steadily kind of increased in production value. We're able to do a lot more with animation. We recently, just about a year ago, put out a full 12-minute like fantasy epic that's half animated in like a super, by a super pro animation studio, stuff like that. So it's been fun to run the gamut from the beginning, like, oh my God, how are we ever going to make a video, to, all right, we're on a sound stage and we're shooting it here.
I want to ask you guys about your, you've got 3 Under the Covers albums where you cover songs. And I was wondering, would you ever consider covering Weird Al or even another comedy song?
I don't think so. We've occasionally talked about this, but it's, our instincts are always for those cover albums just to do the straight ahead covers. Some of the songs have a bit of, there might be a bit arch or something like that, but I don't know. I personally would not gravitate towards just doing a cover of another comedy band's or artist's work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I sort of feel like we'd just be doing the lamer version of that, the awesome one that came first.
Yeah, totally.
And so I also wanted to ask you about your other album, Level Up, where you went back to your back catalog and you recreated those songs. And that's something that I know has kind of been discussed in the Weird Al fan community about, like, wow, it'd be really cool to hear, some of the earlier Al songs done with a full band, as a, to sound like the original as opposed to the accordion.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about that? And how did you make that decision to look at an original recording of a song, which, is essentially then are you breaking the sacredness of the original recording by doing that? I guess you call it level up, but I would love to hear the thought behind doing that.
Yeah, it was kind of the opposite of breaking the sacredness, because for a lot of those early songs, we wanted them to be big guitar driven rock drum awesome kick-ass epics. But we couldn't do it because we didn't know any guitar players or drummers. So like if anything, we were breaking the sacredness of them with the first versions. And then I think, I don't know how we came to discuss it, Brian, but like for me, the first idea of it came when I don't know if you guys are old school like Nintendo players.
Of course.
Oh sure, yeah.
Yeah, if you guys ever played Contra, there was there's a video online of you know, a lot of these metal guitarists will play awesome updated covers of various video game songs, and one of them did a cover of the Contra song, and someone took it and did an interview with the original Japanese composer of the video game.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, it was great. And you can see it on his face. He's like, oh, awesome. And he's speaking through a translator, but the gist was, he was like, this is what I always heard in my head. We were just using tiny MIDI samplers and stuff.
Wow.
So it was a little bit like that, you know, it was less like, let's change this thing, which was meant to be this first way, as opposed to like, let's make it sound the way we always wanted it to be in the first place.
Yeah. It's so just to put some context here for people who don't know, in our first 3 albums, the music is the non-vocal music is almost entirely digital. So I was just doing that on Logic. We occasionally hire people for a part here and there, but generally speaking, it's all digital instruments. Which is actually, kind of to get back to a question you guys asked before, a big part of the reason our sound became very synth heavy is because those sounded good when done digitally.
Right.
And I could write synth stuff in Logic and have it sound actually good, as opposed to like, you know, a like crappy violin or something, which just would never sound, you know, that you could buy the expensive patches, but I didn't have the money for it. And so it's like, oh, we can actually make synth stuff sound good. Let's do a lot of synth stuff, which we loved anyway. So I think originally we were kind of genre agnostic, but as we kept writing, that's the stuff that ended up happening. With Level Up, first of all, I don't think we could have set ourselves up harder for, I liked your old stuff better than by doing covers of our old songs. Like, you know, which we fully knew going in. I do love the original versions of those songs. You know, I think we made them with what we had available to us at the time, and we made them the way we wanted them to be. Like, a lot of thought and care went into those. But we've been talking about, so we work with this band TWRP, amazing Canadian group, 4 guys. It's bass, drums, guitar, and the guy who does keytar and talkbox. And we'd been working with them for a long time. And, you know, it just, we kept saying, and we kept hearing from the fans too, oh man, wouldn't it be great to hear Twerp do some of the old stuff. And so we were writing stuff for a new album, and then COVID hit, and it was like, and we knew we had an original album coming out that year, and it was like, oh my God, like, we're not going to be able to be in the same room with our producer, Jim Roach, to write new stuff in order to have an original album next year. Okay. And then we had the idea. It's like, well, wait a minute. Actually, maybe this is our chance to do this thing we've been talking about that's been on the back burner for years. Let's do the Level Up, because we don't really, it's just arrangement. It's not new songwriting. And arranging is not easy, but it's way easier than writing a new song.
Right.
So it was like, okay, this seems like a sign that if we're ever going to do this Level Up thing, and I think we'd had that title even for a few years at that point, it's like, now's the time. let's get in the studio and do it. And so I can't remember exactly when we did. I think it was August 2020. So it wasn't like early days of the pandemic, but it was, pre-vaccines and stuff. Got everybody tested, just made sure we were as safe as possible, and went to Sunset Sound here in LA and recorded the album there, essentially. So it was also an excuse / opportunity to do this project that we've been wanting to do for a while.
Was the pandemic helpful for you guys to write new stuff as well?
No, not at all. Because we write now with our producer, Jim Roach, and it's just the magic happens when we're all in person. So it has been harder to write stuff in the pandemic. And it was so like we've been together now. We've done a few writing sessions with him. And I remember the first one back was just like, oh, yes, finally. So it's been actually much harder given the way we typically write, which is all three of us in the same room, to do that during the pandemic. I mean, we're still like, we're well into, more than half done with a new original album. So it's like, it's absolutely happening, but it has been, it definitely, we weren't writing a lot in the pandemic.
Got it. Okay. I'm curious to hear about, you guys have some side projects and stuff like that. And I guess the first one I wanted to ask about is Starbomb. This is the second band. And my understanding is it's no longer a band anymore. It was like a temporary thing.
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say that. Like,
okay.
We have.
Is that an announcement here?
What do you want? Danny, what do you want to say about this?
Well, I'll say that. Okay. First, a little background. Starbomb. The reason. Well, I shouldn't say the reason, but like one thing that really helped NSP get its footing was that I fell ass backwards into this YouTube channel called Game Grumps, where we play video games every day and just talk over them, kind of like Mystery Science Theater 3000, but with video games. And
right.
That had a built-in audience that really loved NSP and helped stabilize the band.
Big time.
And so my comedy partner on the Game Grumps show, Aaron, actually surprisingly has some rapping ability. And we thought it would be funny if we just kind of pooled all our resources as a side project and made this this band called Starbomb, which writes songs about video game characters in adult situations, shall we say.
So some more adult than others.
Yeah. And so we made one album, and we were like, that was really dumb and fun, and it connected with people. So we made a second album, and after that we were like, okay, this band is done. Like, we can't. How many songs can people really want in this vein? So we took a couple years off, and then we thought, maybe we'll make a third album. And so we did that, and again, people were there for it. And afterwards we were like, all right, that's got to be it. Like, we're in our 40s. We cannot indefinitely write songs about Mario having sex with Princess Peach. We just can't do it.
But it turns out there are other people for Mario to have sex with. So
yeah, and so here we are, and it looks like album 4 might end up happening down the line.
Wow.
We're talking about it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yes.
And
so it's the band that will not die.
Yeah. So the thing that kind of spurred the recent discussion is we just put out a vinyl box set for that album, for that band. And like we had no idea if anyone was going to show up for it. Cause again, it's been years since the last album. It's like, does anyone care about this band anymore? The box sets did pretty well. And we were like, oh, actually, I guess people still like Starbomb. Like, maybe there's still an audience here. So, we had this thing recently that convinced us the fans are still there for it too.
That's so cool.
And by the way, asked, is this an announcement? It's not quite an announcement, but it's an announcement that we're thinking about having an announcement.
Okay, understood. We won't alert the media.
Yeah, but that band is really fun. It's like, for me musically, it's almost all like hip hop stuff. A few songs aren't, but generally it's just like, beats and stuff. And that's which we occasionally do with NSP, but it's a fun muscle to stretch musically.
Yeah, we just like doing stuff,
Right.
To wildly oversimplify it. And like we're aware that usually people's careers have shelf lives, and certainly singing is a perishable skill, so we just want to like take advantage of this window while it's there and just do as much stuff as possible that we can look back on and be proud of and have fun. And I mean, to be honest, at least with NSP, I never imagined the window would be this long,
Oh, dude, I was just thinking when I moved out to LA in 2015, which is 7 years ago now, I was having a meeting with like a financial planner, and he's like, "So what's your income going to be for the next few years?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm in this band and I think it's got 2 more years." And I was like, if we're lucky, maybe 5. And here we are 7 years later.
Wow.
And arguably, the band is more popular than it's ever been, and it's still going strong. And it's just like, I think to myself all the time, how did we get so lucky as to have this thing, which is such a dream come true. We get to have not only a career in the arts, but a career in comedy music, the stuff that I was obsessive over as a child and still am.
Right.
Like, I'm almost like tearing up thinking about this, but what did I do to get so lucky to be able to do this for a living? It really is. I don't understand how it happened, but I'm so grateful that it did and continues to, like Danny was saying, give us the opportunity to try, weird, fun things that are, give ourselves new challenges and just try new stuff.
Yeah, and to bring it back to Weird Al, since this is a Weird Al podcast, like,
oh yeah,
that's another thing. You're right. That is another thing, his longevity, and when you go to his concerts now, you see multi-generational fans,
Oh yeah.
Parents with their kids and all that kind of stuff, and maybe even at this point, like grandparents with their
100%.
grandkids.
Yeah, for sure. It's
it's amazing, and it's also a good example of like someone who never let up and never stopped doing what he loved doing, but also never let the quality drop.
100%.
Yeah, you look at his albums now, and they're exactly as good as. Well, I shouldn't say exactly as good. They're in many ways better than they were 30 years ago, and that really speaks to the person behind the music, and that, as much as anything else, is really, really inspirational. Because a lot of my favorite bands, Rush being my favorite, they're another example. Same guys for like 40 years, and it's just like they realize, like, okay, we've got this very unique thing where you got the tiger by the tail, like, and now the whole goal is just to never let go, never slack, and just hold on as long as you can, because it's just a once in a lifetime thing, and you don't want to blow it.
Yeah, and it's the easiest thing in the world to become a quote unquote legacy act, where I shouldn't say the easiest thing in the world. If you have the audience,
right,
the easiest thing is to just do what you were doing, right? You go see the same show you could have seen 20 years ago, except everyone's 20 years older.
Yep.
One of the things that I admire so much about Al is he's not doing that. Did the No Strings Attached, or the Strings Attached, was it the orchestral tour?
Yep.
What was the name of it?
Right.
Was it Strings Attached?
Strings Attached.
Strings Attached. Yep.
Yeah. And I was like, what an amazing move to do this tour, to actually do something so different, and a full tour with that full orchestra. And, the tour that he did before the Strings Attached and is doing this year, the more acoustic-y kind of thing, let's just say is very inspirational for an upcoming NSP tour.
Very cool.
Where when we were thinking about what could we do differently, that, you know, I was like, well, I saw this amazing Al show, and that would be fun to try something like that. You know, I love that he's a guy who keeps taking chances and doing different stuff.
Now, while we're on the topic of this Weird Al, you guys, you got to tell me, Dan, and I don't know if this is when you were working on Game Grumps, Brian, but you got to tell me about when Weird Al was on Game Grumps.
Yeah, that was rad. He was super nice. Brian was there. Brian was in the building.
Oh yeah, it was like that was part of the you know, his coming to the office was like he agreed to chat with me and Dan for a bit and then be on Game Grumps, and you know, like, could not have been a kinder, sweeter guy, and it was just lovely to meet him.
Yeah, super funny, very down to earth, very normal, like, you know, and I mean that in the best, most complimentary way possible. Whenever anyone has been living in the spotlight for decades, I can think of no easier thing than to just lose your mind completely. Because it wears on you. And he's just clearly, like, he's a very, like, just lovely person and chill, down to earth guy. And so that was really cool. And it was cool too, because with the format of Game Grumps, you're playing a video game while sitting on a couch with someone for a couple of hours. So there's no real awkward pauses in the conversation or anything like that, because you have the game to talk about and concentrate on.
Right.
And there's no time to think like, oh my God, I'm talking to, you know, anything like that, because
right.
your mind is occupied elsewhere. And it's a strangely really comforting way to get to know somebody. Because you go on like a little video game adventure with them.
Right.
And so by the end of those couple of hours, like, you know, it really felt like, oh man, we got in some good, like, quality hang time, and the conversation got a little deeper than just the surface hello, how are you? And
right.
It was moving that he knew who we were, and that he liked what we were doing, and that's really all, like, we wanted to hear, you know. Like, it was just like, oh cool, we did good. You know.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine what that feels like, right? The guy who you've been looking up to for so many years is like, yeah, I know your stuff, and it's great. I was like, oh my God, what is happening right now? It really meant a lot to both of us.
Yeah, and a nice thing too is that like, we don't think of ourselves as famous people, but like, within a certain circle, you know, it can get pretty intense. And
right.
When you're on the other side of it, let me put it this way. When I was growing up, I thought if I met a quote unquote famous person, the thing that they would like the most was if I made a huge deal about them. Like, oh my God, you're so good, you know, like, you're a god on earth, you know? And then when you get on the other side of it, you realize, like, oh, I don't like that at all. Like, I would much rather someone just be like, hey, you know, I enjoy your stuff. Yep. And a handshake and on with your day, you know? And so it was cool that we got to meet someone like him after experiencing the other side of what that interaction feels like, because it allowed us to be a lot more like, okay, this is just another human being and they want to just be treated normally. And it allowed us to relax a little bit more. And as a result, you know, it went well, and we've stayed in touch, and
yep.
It's just a cool thing.
It's incredible.
For sure.
Very cool. When you're recording like an episode of Game Grumps, did you give Weird Al like a choice of which video games he would be playing, or did he have any insight into that, or did you just throw the video games at him? How does that work?
I think we played Wheel of Fortune with him because that's just a very good game for someone. It's a weird format, of that show, and
Right.
but everyone knows how to play Wheel of Fortune, and it's the pacing's good, and you can like work out puzzles together, and there's a lot of like gaps to talk and say funny stuff. So I think we started with that one, and then we ended up playing a weird Japanese game called My Mom Game.
Yeah.
Purely because
Right.
I think just because his ride wasn't showing up for like another 20 minutes and we had time to kill, and we were like, I bet he enjoyed this totally bizarre thing. So that really was it. But not too much thought went into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, something that we learned about Al when we interviewed him and sort of through some interviews he did during the pandemic is that he himself is actually quite a gamer. Knowing that he, is playing Grand Theft Auto and God of War and stuff like that, if he came back, would you present him maybe with some different games?
Oh, sure. I mean, if he came back, it would be a much different dynamic, because now there's a familiarity there. And I said we didn't make a big deal out of it, like outwardly, but inwardly we were losing our so I'm sure you can attest to this too, Brian. Like, if we get a chance to hang out with him again, it'll be a lot more like chill all the way around.
No, it's like now this is, a person we know, not like best friends or anything like that, but like it's a person that, as Danny said, there's a familiarity with, and it would be it'd be more like hanging out with a friend than like, oh my God, we're meeting this guy for the first time.
Well, I've met Al dozens of times, and I don't know if that ever goes away.
I'm sure it'll be there. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm sure it would be there to some extent because he's been such a big part of our lives. But yeah,
it's really a matter of like whether you let your mind go there. Like if you just concentrate on the human being that's sitting in front of you, then it's totally chill. But like if you start thinking like, oh wow, that's right, this thing he did that and he did that, that then like really like spiral a little bit.
Yeah, but I will say, given the one time we've actually seen him in person, or hung out with him in person, it's he's certainly is very comfortable. Like he's not one of those people that's like putting himself at a distance and anything like that. Like it's as Danny said, it's all in your own head.
Right.
So he's a very it was a very comfortable kind of experience. I'm sure it would be again.
Yeah, he's mellow. I mean, in a sense, like it could have been weird for him too, because
totally.
As exciting as it was for us to meet him, like we were still the group, and he was the one person meeting 25 people simultaneously.
Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I mean, he didn't just meet us; he met like all of our employees and all the people in the building and everything at first, and then we recorded separately. But I'm sure that's something that he's gotten more used to over the years. But I don't know if any human being ever really gets totally used to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Just want to take you guys back to your childhood. I guess you were 10 years old or 14-year-old or wherever you first discovered Weird Al. What was your reaction to actually getting to meet Weird Al? Thinking back as the little 10-year-old or 14-year-old child, how would they have reacted had they known that all those years later you'd be working with Weird Al?
Oh, I mean, my 10-year-old self would have been like overjoyed. Well, I was a pretty shy kid, so I think if I had had the opportunity to meet Al when I was 10, I wouldn't have been able to handle it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the cool thing was like actually getting to tell him some of that stuff, because I can't remember too much of the conversation, but I definitely remember mentioning that in fourth grade, my friend Josh and I, for our school talent show, we performed Dare to Be Stupid.
Wow.
And yes, we did not win.
Oh.
We were
What?
Yeah. I know, hard to believe.
You're
There were
robbed.
7 acts, and there was a top 5, and we did not make it into the top 5.
What?
Oh no.
I know.
That's
so
really funny.
I demand a recount.
but that's the thing, right? Thank you. And so that's the funny thing about situations like that, because I clearly remembered having a heated debate with my buddy Josh over who would get to say the mashed potatoes can be your friends line.
Yes.
That was our favorite. And
yeah.
and the idea that I guess 30 years later I would get to tell Weird Al that exact thing and have him be like, that is ridiculous, and like laugh about it. It was just it was so cool, and still feels kind of like surreal when you talk about it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Before we go, you guys have so many different projects, and I feel like we need hours and hours to get to all of them. But if you could briefly, you guys each have kind of your own side projects. I know we've already talked about a couple side projects, but Dan, you have a new band, Shadow Academy, and Brian, you've got a like a children's music band, Go Banana Go. I would love for you both to, at the same time, tell us about that. Or maybe take turns.
Danny, you want to go first?
Sure. Shadow Academy is my return to quote unquote normal music. Well, that's not true. It's not normal, but like non-comedic music. And my biggest love in music outside of comedy music is progressive rock from like the 70s, and alternative rock from like the early 90s. So Shadow Academy is kind of a band that melds those two things together. And we released our first album. It's self-titled a couple of weeks ago, and put a couple of animated videos out there. And it's just a huge check mark off the old bucket list, you know. And it's wonderful just that like I get to do both of those things, you know. Because the funny thing is when we started NSP, I asked Brian, what genre of music would you like our band to be? And he said, I think it should change from song to song, because I would get bored just doing one genre. I was like, oh my God, I never even thought of that. And that's how NSP has been for a long time. But for me, like I also always wanted to be in just a rock band. And so Shadow Academy kind of scratches that itch, and now I'm pretty happy. So thanks for bringing it up.
Of course, that's incredible.
And with Go Banana Go, it's a kids band. So we with these two projects, Danny and I each have the same partner, albeit in different projects, which is our NSP's producer Jim Roach. So Shadow Academy is Dan and Jim. Go Banana Go is me and Jim. And so Jim like me is a father, and we were in the studio a couple years back talking about NSP stuff, and we both were like, oh man, we should do a kids band. And it was like, well, we should do that with each other. And so we started writing kids songs, and it's been really fun. It took us a while to realize what it was, but it turns out it's a kids comedy band. It's like, for whatever reason, I'm constitutionally incapable of writing non-comedic music. I can't do it, I guess. And yeah, so we now, with that band, we just put out our second full-length album last week. And we have an EP that we did with Flula Borg. Some people might know him. He's a really funny German comedian that actually Danny and I did a single with a few years back. And yeah, it's just opportunity to make fun, ridiculous music for children. Half the song titles come from our kids, And it's like, with NSP, we agonize over these songs, like fine tuning jokes. Could this word be funnier? Could that word be funnier?
Right.
Maybe, blah, blah, blah. With Go Banana Go, it's like, I don't know, dinosaur in a supermarket? Yeah, cool. Okay. And then, it's a lot of like first thought, best thought in a good way kind of stuff. So it's so much fun to make that music. And my main impetus, and Jim's main impetus too, was to make children's music that's not annoying and is something that it's such a cliche, but it really is what we were going for. Parents would actually want to hear as well.
Right.
And yeah, I love that project. And it's also like, I love my daughter Audrey, who's just about to turn 8, but for pretty obvious reasons, I can't play a lot of Ninja Sex Party stuff for her. It's not, it's not like I'm going to play Everybody Shut Up, I Have an Erection for my kid. So the other thing is this gives me an opportunity to write music that is like literally for her, and not only for her, but that involves her as well. She sings on a bunch of the songs, as do Jim's kids. It is like this thing I can point to. I can play it in the car and not have to loudly sing over certain words that show up in the lyrics, to shield her tender young ears.
I'm so glad that's where you went with that statement, Brian, because when you started off a sentence with, I love my daughter, Audrey, but I was like,
I can't even tell you, dude, how many times we'll be like listening to music in the car. We listen actually to the NSP cover albums a lot. She loves them. She has a little boombox in her room and she puts on the albums and dances around very frequently, actually. But because of algorithmic stuff, it'll play an NSP cover and then it'll go to an NSP original. And I have to have a lightning fast finger on that pause button because sometimes those songs sometimes come out of the gate pretty hard. And there would be a lot of questions. Let's just say that.
Well, you guys, it's been such an absolute pleasure to get to talk to you here about, Ninja Sex Party, your side projects, your love of Al. Dan, you are currently going to be touring with Game Grumps. Brian, you've got an awesome podcast, Late Night. There's so much more to explore, so I hope we can have you guys on again sometime in the future. This has just been an absolute pleasure for Dave and I to talk to you both.
Thanks, man. It was really nice to talk to you guys too. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you for having us.
Well, a huge thank you again to Dan Avidan and Brian Wecht from Ninja Sex Party for joining us for this special episode.
Be sure to check out ninjasexparty.com and starbomb.com for their bands, as well as Dan's band Shadow Academy, Brian's band Go Banana Go, Dan's YouTube channel Game Grumps, and Brian's podcast Light and Night with Brian Wecht.
This episode is brought to you in part by Discover Darwin, promoting tourism in Darwin, Minnesota. Not only is historic Darwin, Minnesota beautiful, it's also friendly for pets.
If you find yourself in or around Darwin, Minnesota, you may be asking yourself, I need a pet? ?
Well, we have some good news and some bad news.
Bad news first.
The bad news is that there are 0 pet stores in the city limits of Darwin.
Well, the good news?
The good news is that there are some convenient locations nearby.
Wow! Like what?
Well, a quick search on Yelp brings up a few pet stores.
I'm listening.
Number 1, Shelley's Golden's Pet Breeders.
Oh, they breed Goldens. Like goldfish, probably.
Number 2, Dassel Breeder Farm.
Breeder farm, so they grow breeders?
Number 3, Shooting Star Services.
My first pet was named Star. That's horrible, Dave.
Number 4, Companions Forever Pet.
Forever Pets! Oh, how wonderful!
You didn't let me finish. Companions Forever Pet Cremation Service.
What? Why is that the number 4 pet store?
So visit Darwin, Minnesota on your next pet-friendly expedition. Discover Darwin, more than just the twine ball. And after you visit Darwin, Minnesota, be sure to visit discoverdarwin.biz. All right, Ethan, I have a surprise for you.
Are we going to interview 2 of the 3 members of the band Starbomb?
No, but we do have a new sponsor.
Hooray! Now, does this mean I get to finally get that hamster I've always wanted since the beginning of this episode?
It sure does, Cooney, thanks to our friend and newest sponsor, Jack Bateman.
Jack Bateman, Weird Al superfan and hamster sponsor. It doesn't get much better than that.
It sure does. Not. I cannot wait for our catchy yet irritating hamster sponsor-related ads for episodes to come.
And we promise that none of the sponsorship will cover any of our intern Frank's associated hamster allergy medical bills. And you can take that to the bank. But Frank can't, because he's not seeing any of that money.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast is brought to you absolutely free thanks to our incredible sponsors, Burrito, Discover Darwin, Jackson Scoggins, and our newest sponsor, Jack Bateman.
Our podcast is also supported by everyone in our Patreon family, with special thanks to our amazing close personal friend level Patreon supporters, Javier, Nancy, NES Josh 64, UH Jeff, Kenneth, Scott, Zeb, Adriana, Allison, Blair, Frank from the Bank, Jake, Jared, and also thanks to our newest close personal friend level supporters, Gus and Alicia, as well as Aaron and everyone else in our pretty stinking majestic Patreon family.
If you enjoy our family-friendly and hamster-friendly, wild and wacky, and not necessarily weekly Weird Al podcast, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/2000inch. There are awesome benefits like getting your name on the podcast, your very own private RSS feed, and access to our secret episodes. And now would be a really, really good time to join if you have not already, because you will be the very first to hear our unfortunate return of the ridiculously self-indulgent, ill-advised Vanity Tour concert review bonus episodes.
And don't forget to check out our official merchandise over at shop.2000inch.com. The unfortunate return of the ridiculously self-indulgent, ill-advised Vanity Tour is underway, so make sure to get your orders in today for your Discover Darwin or We Hate Intern Frank shirts. That way you can share with the world, and at least the other people at the Weird Al shows, just exactly how you feel about the world's #1 Weird Al podcast, just like our friends Mike Minnick and Johnny O'Hearn did.
We love hearing from our listeners and other Weird Al fans, so join our Facebook community and post about Weird Al by visiting group.2000inch or by heading on over to our brand new Discord. Plus, we also love it when we receive voicemail via our official patent-pending 27-hour-a-day podcast hotline, 347-SPATULA. Give it a call, and you might even hear your message in a future episode.
For everything about our podcast, including incredible past episodes and guests, be sure to visit WeirdAlPodcast.com or 2000inch.com. And while you're there, click on Ridiculously Self-Indulgent bonus episodes to follow along with our adventures on tour. Or click on Black and White and Weird All Over bonus episodes for our special bonus episode book series where author John Bermuda Schwartz walks us through his book page by page and picture by picture.
Keep up on new episodes, podcast news, and events by following at 2000inch on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And thank you for subscribing and leaving reviews on your favorite podcast app. Make sure you are subscribed because not only does it help the podcast, but you can watch The Simpsons from 30 blocks away.
Thank you once again to our guests, Dan Avidan and Brian Wecht of Ninja Sex Party. Thanks to Jeremy Samples, Allison Parsons, UHF Nucera, Johnny O'Hearn, Casey Fritsch, Alexis Adams, Alicia and Gus Bonviri, Jackie Rossi, and Joe Jaffa. Thank you to the Grammy Award-winning Jim Kimo West for our incredible podcast theme song, and thank you to Weird Al Yankovic, as this podcast probably would not exist without him. And a big thanks to all of you, our listeners, subscribers, Patreon supporters, and sponsors, and everyone else who makes our podcast possible.
Thank you for choosing Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast. And until next time, remember to gill and chill.
Hey, I know we keep everything family-friendly on the podcast, but, do we need to have our intern Frank go back and censor every time we say our guest band name?
No, I think that's okay.
Are you sure? I just can't help but think that the name is not really age appropriate.
All right, well, I see what you're getting at here, Ethan, but trust me, even though they are historically violent killers, ninjas